All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank you for taking the time and jumping on board with the Central Region. My name is Walter Fouch. I'm the Regional Parts and Service Manager. And with us today is Jerry O'Sullivan, my counterpart. Good morning, afternoon, Jerry.
Good afternoon, Walter. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
And also that we'll be presenting today is Jack Sparling, our Senior District Parts and Service Manager from Cleveland. Good afternoon, Jack.
Good afternoon.
And then lastly with us as well is Dawn Calderon. She is our District Parts and Service Manager out in Iowa and Nebraska. Hey, Dawn.
Hello.
Thank you. And before we get started, from the Central Region, we really want to say thank you. Our Kia Central Region dealer family for being on the front line and being out there in front of the customers and taking care of Kia customers during this pandemic. It's just an amazing accomplishment. We wanted to first and foremost thank you for the time you're spending with the customers, hopefully administering the social distancing practices and hopefully wearing face masks and staying safe out there. Just to recap real quick about our webinars that we've done already. The first one we did on April 16th. Again, our COVID Big Bang Evolution, our dealership website, Face of the Dealership. That was our number one. And really what we wanted to do with that is develop, help assist the dealers in developing retail strategies for the service end of the business. Something that we've now been thrust into as part of that evolution. Talked about minimizing face-to-face interactions and selling the cleanliness of the stores, which our customers are now demanding. We're going to get into some more information as we see from the best practices that we've been collecting and actual customer feedback. Making scheduling service easy for your customers, and customers are demanding that now. And then updating the schedule to include drop-off or pickup and making sure that the customers have a way to get the vehicle into the store on arrival. And then lastly, and you're going to see again, we're going to talk about communication and the foundation that it sets for the entire evolution of what we're looking at. Then on the 23rd, we've discussed in webinar number 2, generating revenue from the vehicle arrival process through write-up and diagnosis. Talked a lot about greeting and consultation and how that's changed from our traditional way of doing business, where the greeting is going to depend on the arrival process and how much you're going to use that technology to include the customer in your process, because customers are going to be far more demanding and they want to be in control of everything because of all the safety and health concerns that's out there. And then using technology to assist you in developing revenue, right? That's the most important part, video chat, text, phone, and email. And then really tying in to the main concerns that the customer brought the vehicle in for. And at the end of our webinar series, we're hoping that you're going to have a game plan, something that you can use. And it may not be every bullet point that we're going to talk about or every best practice, but if you can take snippets of certain sections that best fit your processes at the stores, we know that it will generate a way for you to do business that we haven't done before and continue that evolution. So this webinar is going to be focused around our evolution towards generating revenue with selling, progress updating, and really what that is communication, and Jack's going to cover that. Jerry will cover the selling, and then Dawn will talk about quality assurance and how we're morphing those traditional processes into something more, especially with the electronic and digital flair to it. The agenda, I'm going to cover the state of the Central Region and give you some industry updates. Then Jerry's going to run into the selling process through generating revenue, obviously, through the selling process, and then communications for Jack, and like I mentioned, quality assurance for Dawn. Then we're going to go into suggestions, thought starters, and best practices, which we've got some really good information for you. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A as far as discussions and any questions that might come up as we go through it. And I'll give you Jack Sparling's information here shortly, but Jack will be taking in all of the questions if you have them through his email and his cell phone for texting, and I'll provide that to you in just a second. One thing we're seeing right now in the region, and this is the difference in between warranty and customer pay repair orders. Right now, the region is showing this past week a 29% gain in business since the week of April 5th. That's almost a 30-point jump, and we're 8 points ahead of the national average running for that same time frame. So we're starting to see customers come back into the stores. We're starting to see more business, more traffic, and you can kind of see the warranty is flatlining there a little bit as well. And we're starting to see a little bit of peaks up towards that business as well. but it's nice to start to see that swing, and it's kind of disturbing when you see the major drop, but now, again, like I said, it's nice to see the swing coming up. So we know the business is coming back. And then moving on just slightly, when you see the state of the region, we wanted to share the feedback of what we're seeing from customers, and these are customers from just this last survey period, the surveys that dropped yesterday. This is direct customer feedback, and I think it's important to look at when we're talking about what the customer's perceptions are, right? And the first one you see there is, due to COVID-19, the dealer came to my house. So customers are acknowledging what this extra effort that you're putting forward to make their lives easier. They're clearly saying it, and you can see this is exact customer verbatim, and picked up my vehicle and dropped it off when it was finished. And very convenient since I was working from home. Well, everybody's working from home, but the customer acknowledged it. Here's one that's a little more problematic, is social distancing wasn't being practiced. There was coughing in the waiting areas, so I chose to walk around the neighborhood. You can read through the customers just very upset. And what really jumps out at me with this is that he's looking at it from the employee perspective as well, that no one was wearing masks. So not taking it as serious as what everybody is telling them they need to be. Then you got another positive one where it was a very quick service, and they were following the COVID-19 precautions. And then another one, we would like to see evidence of mask-wearing employees. And then details about the service would be performed were explained to me. Here's a happy customer. I was treated as an important person, not just money in our pockets. Services were again explained to me before I paid, and because of the coronavirus, I was able to use a credit card at the service desk. So instead of walking through the dealership, so you can see the customers are still really concerned about their safety and health. Even if some of the regional areas are starting to open up and some states are starting to open up, you still have to take that customer feeling and that safety into account when you're doing business with them. Now, what I'm providing to you here is a snapshot of Gallup Industries. So when we do these webinars, we want to show you not just what's happening within our industry, but from other industries as well. And Gallup is a big surveying company that's out there. And one thing that they really point out that really hit me hard was the strength in the relationship with the customer during this crisis. The stronger you build that brand, that keep the brand in the customer's mind, the more loyal they're going to be. And I'm going to show you something else here regarding trust, because customers want to trust you more. This enables companies to rethink our customer experience to cope with the shift in customer touchpoints, like being safety. And you can see those customer comments clearly stated that. And then recommended actions, which is establishing mechanisms to capture customer sentiment, which is what we have. But if you're not reviewing your processes and making sure that you're adapting to what the customers want, you're going to start getting customers to be more upset. And ultimately what it comes down to is generating revenue from happy customers and getting that retention and getting the customers to come back in the store. Now this is the one I was just mentioning. These are best practice actions that they've collected through leading organizations within our country regarding the way that they want to be treated against the pandemic, right? The first thing was trust, proactively having open and authentic communication. I told you in the beginning that communication was going to be key. Complying with restrictions and devoting extra efforts to ensure safety. So this isn't Kia talking. This is Gallup Industries that did a whole bunch of surveys out there, right? And then you can see what the customers are coming back with and what other companies are doing to try to stay in touch with customers. Then expressing care, offering flexibility and support for customers. Pickup and delivery, we talked about that. Stability, highlighting what's staying the same. Accelerating the digital outreach. And now that's what we're thrust into, and the reason why we wanted to do these evolution discussions and webinars. And then the one thing that jumped out at me really when I saw this was hope. Celebrating emerging and optimistic trends, highlighting legacy accomplishments, then communicating future preparation efforts. The customers want to be part of your process. So it's really nice to see that we as an organization are moving in the right direction and sharing this information with you as Kia employees in our Central Region family. Because of that, we now have taken actions, more actions from April into May, and we've now extended or relaunched the Accelerate the Good Customer Care Credit. And as a matter of fact, at this point, I think we were down to 3 dealers left to enroll in the Central Region. So I want to thank everybody on the phones for participating and jumping back in that program again. Then another thing that was extended was our 0% for 90 days. through Sunbit. Now, I don't have Dignify, but I believe, and I haven't seen the email come through, that Dignify extended theirs as well. So you have these alternative financing options that can help customers who are in the need to use that financing and get them through the vehicle repair. Now, this is one of my favorite things. This is the first, and been in this business for over 30 years. This is the first real service video, and I'm going to call it a video. You can call it a commercial, but I'm going to call it the video. And this is right now loaded on K-Dealer for everybody to see. It's a 30-second snippet of what you can provide to customers. Again, like I said, this is on K-Dealer, and you can put this on your website for customers. But I'm going to play this so you can get a really good aspect of this video. There we go.
Not everything can be at a standstill right now, because some things just can't be put off. Rest assured, the people at your local Kia Dealer Service Center understand you and your vehicle's needs to keep you safe on the road and your maintenance appointments convenient. Many dealers are servicing your Kia with no-contact drop-off, offering pickup and delivery options. All simply booked online, and with many dealers offering service financing options, you're already getting it everything. Let us help.
Anyway, I want to thank the national office for putting that together for us, because it matches what the sales department is doing with being out on national public TV. But this is a great video for us, and like I said, it's the first time I've seen a company ever do something specifically for service, but nice to see it. Moving on to our key elements for this webinar. Our three key elements, as I mentioned, was going to be the selling process, and then seeing what service consultants and the proper write-up and properly regular monitoring the repair process for customers, how technicians use MPI in the selling process, how you use the electronic version and bridge the gap between the MPI and the quoting process when the customers aren't even in your store anymore. And then using MPI and the necessary documents for the full presentation. And then finally, looking at the opportunities and sell based on customer needs, features, benefits. Jerry's going to cover that. Then moving on into the communication area, and that's frequent updates to consumers and why. And it's not about after you do the diagnosis and after you do the sales pitch. It's the entire communication process, and Jack will cover that. And finally, Dawn's going to cover the vehicle assurance side of it and the completeness of the vehicle repair and why it's so important now than ever. Without further ado, I'm going to kick this right over to Jerry O'Sullivan, my counterpart. Jerry, take it away.
Thank you, Walter. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome aboard again. Thanks for taking the time this afternoon with us. Regarding some of the suggestions that we have and the best practices that we've come across, one key element is the consultant's full review of the vehicle, and that includes the repair history and the maintenance intervals. We always want to be selling the green. So the way revenue potential is dependent upon that thoroughness of the review of the vehicle's history. And that doesn't start when the customer gets there. It doesn't start when the car's in the shop. It starts just after the customer makes the appointment. How do we prepare for that customer? What tools do we have in place? One of the best practices, obviously, is to make sure that any open recalls or service actions, as well as previously declined services, or those that were listed last visit in the yellow, are addressed and they're reviewed. We want to make sure that any maintenance due at that mileage is offered, and if there's anything from a catch-up perspective from maintenance that may have been missed from the customer, that we're offering that. We want to make sure that we take the time necessary to review and identify the opportunities. That preparation sets up the plan that needs to be implemented and worked with the customer in terms of keeping their overall status of it and the vehicle, and determining where they are within their life cycle in terms of how much they need or need to invest in their vehicle at the time. Starting the process early helps you gauge the customer's overall receptiveness. So at the time of write-up and walk-around, perhaps reviewing an item that was in the yellow last visit. For example, Mrs. Jones, we noticed that your brakes were listed in the yellow last time at a certain measurement. In the event we do the inspection and determine you need the brakes, can I go ahead and replace the brake pads while I have the vehicle in the shop? Get a sense for where the customer is within their life cycle. We want to make sure that the service consultant is regularly monitoring the vehicle process. Best practice is to set the expectation at the time of write-up. Give them a sense that they'll be included in the process and that you'll have results to share with them. Show them the multi-point inspection. Let them know what type of safety inspection and results you're going to be sharing with them Give them something to look forward to in a further attempt to build that trust. We also want to follow up during the process of write-up with respect to showing the customer your commitment as well as keeping that promise. When we keep that commitment and we keep that time with the customer, we are further building the trust within the customer in that transaction. Next, Walter. So it is, as Walter touched on before with respect to the electronic multi-point inspection and some of the other resources available, such as the KZVG that is in KDealer and a video presentation. We have to use technology to our advantage these days. Our customers expect it. Many dealers are using an electronic multi-point inspection and have video submissions to the customer. Some of those companies are DealerFX, iService, Xtime, CBIS. There's a number of companies that are doing it. The bigger question is that if you're not, how are you handling reviewing the customer's history as far as their multi-point inspection? How do you bring in those yellow items from last visit into today's conversation? How are you measuring the closing ratio? What better time now than to invest in an electronic multi-point inspection process that allows you to identify and sell the necessary information? That technology is another trust-building tool for the customer as well as an investment into their vehicle. The future of your business and pictures and videos shows the additional services and gives you an ability to show why it's needed. Customer comes in for a routine maintenance, and then the car goes back into the shop, or as some people refer to it as the black hole. 20 minutes later, the multi-point inspection comes back, and then next thing you know, oh, I didn't realize I would need that. My car was driving fine. The video evidence and some of the pictures that you're able to take with the electronic multi-point inspection go a long way to furthering that trust that we've talked about. When it comes to making that original process review in terms of what the customers needed, we always want to make sure we are reviewing the customer's original request. If a customer comes in with a check engine light and oil change, we want to make sure that we're addressing their needs for that check engine light first. Then we review the results of the safety inspection. And as I said before, we want to sell the green. Green, yellow, red. Always sell the green. And then address any additional suggestions that came up, whether it be mileage intervals or anything else that was needed on the multi-point inspection. The customer needs to trust that the recommendation that you're making is needed. They need to believe that the price that they're being presented is fair. We have to take into consideration their financial situation and the amount of time that it's going to take to do any additional repairs that they may not have expected at the time they made the appointment. We want to make sure that we incorporate any type of inconvenience and then have a solution for it. Perhaps it's alternate transportation. Perhaps it really is an additional time. It's just a matter of notifying that these components can be handled while we're completing the rest of the work on their vehicle. Next. So the features and benefits. How do we handle the features and benefits? How do we overcome the objections? What type of options are we willing to offer? We want to make sure that it all starts with a proper write-up. Asking important questions when the customer is bringing the vehicle in will go a long way in establishing as what exactly they're looking to get out of the vehicle and getting out of the visit. Who, what, where, when, how much. True service selling requires practice and it requires training. Training your consultant is just as critical as training your sales advisors. Your consultant is seeing more customers a day, so it's critical that they get the training they need to work with your service customers throughout their service visit. We need to make sure we know the customer's vehicle, know the customer, and know the reason why any service is being recommended. Building value behind any suggested recommendation. Even routine maintenance has a reason, has a value. And the benefit of doing routine maintenance is it prevents other issues from creeping up down the road. It is critical that when we work with the customer that we prepare that estimate, giving them the options, using technology to make sure that it's used with the customer. Take the time to practice what you're trying to sell to the customer. It's okay to take a couple minutes to make sure that you have your priorities in order, that if a customer has 4 or 5 things that needs to be done, that we know what is the most important item, what is the second most important, and that we have options. And remember, breathe and smile. You're reviewing critical information on the customer's car, and it's important information to make sure that we share that information. We want to also make sure that we're explaining the benefits. Servicing customers really want to buy something not for the sake of buying it, but they want a problem solved. That's what the presentation can offer. Think of it as this: an umbrella has a wind-resistant construction. That's the feature. The benefit is that you're going to stay dry in strong wind. It's a very simple process. We always want to make sure what's in it for the customer when they do the recommended items that we're asking them to do. As Walter touched on before, we have alternate finance sources that are offering specials this month. Sunbit 0% financing, again, for the month of May. Giving these payment options increases the likelihood that the customer can handle that repair today. Most importantly, we need to ask for the sale and be prepared for those objections. Can you tell the difference between a real objection as opposed to an excuse? Any turn down of a safety item should really be turned over to your quote-unquote, your service sales manager. Do you have a lead advisor? Think of it this way. If I went into a dealership and asked for a brochure and a 2-year lease on a Forte, I would probably have to speak to 3 or 4 people before walking out with that brochure and a price. But think about a customer that comes in from out of town for an oil change, and they're told they need 4 tires and a set of brake pads. How many advisors do they have to say no to before we give them their car back? Safety items need to take that type of consideration, that we make sure the customer understands why we're making the recommendation. Next, Walter. The advantages. Business goes where it's invited and stays where it's appreciated. I'm going to say that one more time. Business goes where it's invited and stays where it's appreciated. We need to inform and educate all our customers on the fact that we are now open and that we are safely doing business. We are also customers, so we want to feel cared for in any type of purchase that we make. So whatever promise the brand that is made to us, that's the same type of promise we want to make sure that we're taking care and delivering to our customers. The human experience is important to all of us, and it's going to help us make decisions for the next purchase. That's what's going to determine the incoming revenue stream for our dealers right now, is how we handle and treat our customers today. If we forget anything along the way that might turn off the customer, we do risk preventing any future business or interactions in terms of consideration from that customer. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jack Sparling.
I'm sorry, I couldn't get it unmuted. Good afternoon, everybody. Obviously, my assignment is customer communication, and obviously the service consultant is the second most important person in the communication process. Communication with the customer is the most important thing we can do to improve retention. Each service consultant has a multitude of ways to maintain the status of every repair order. The DMS, the dispatcher, parts department, shop foreman, and the technician are all resources to the consultant. Keeping the consultant in control is paramount to effective customer communication. On initial contact, the service consultant needs to establish the customer's preferred method of communication and let the customer know exactly what communication to expect and when to expect it. I will call, I will email, I'll text you at this time, etc. The consultant promises to inform the customer, sets the time aside during the day, and must keep that promise. This is very important as it takes time management away from the customer and puts it in the hands of the consultant. The consultant has control. When the consultant has control, there is order. And when the customer has control, time management no longer exists. Customer Customers expect continuous updates, and the consultant should set enough time aside to update the customer at least 3 times a day on the status of their vehicle. The quarter time process should be the rule of thumb. Service consultants must maintain an awareness of every aspect of communication, not only with the customer, but with all parties involved in the repair process, whether that be parts, dispatcher, shop foreman, or the technician. And that communication needs to be effective in both directions. Proactively keeping the consultant informed in order to ensure complete conveyance of information to the customer. After fact gathering is complete, the service consultant is then in a position to accurately update the customer of any changes to the promise time or cost of repair. The consultant must anticipate customer questions and concerns and utilize continual fact gathering to ensure credibility. Always begin with the information at your fingertips, your DMS. It should be able to provide all the information necessary for the current status of repair. The dispatcher, team leader, or technician can be used to provide up to the second updates and forecasts before contact is made with the customer. Utilizing these methods will ensure that a progress update communication with the customer is accurate, honest, and timely. Before making the contact, the consultant needs to know which technician has been assigned to the job. If the job includes diagnostic work or has a very tight promise time, checking directly with the technician to determine the current status of the work in an effort to determine that everything is going as promised. The consultant needs to confirm that the job is on schedule and that the required resources, including parts and special tools, are available to complete the work on time. Check with the parts department to determine if there is an issue that might affect the promise time. Things to note are if the parts are in stock, need to be ordered, or can be located locally. If an unforeseen circumstance occurs that requires a change in the promise time, check on the availability of alternative transportation. Offer those options to the client in an effort to minimize their inconvenience. If the technician, team leader, or dispatcher confirms that service work on the vehicle has been completed, immediately determine the location of the paperwork. Every person involved in the repair process needs to make every effort to get the paperwork closed expeditiously, as it has a direct impact on respect to the customer's time. Double check the progress of the service repairs until you are certain all work will be completed and the promises that have been made to the client can be fulfilled. Next slide, please. The advantages: promise times can be modified with the customer, enhancing their perception of the dealership meeting all their needs. Incoming phone calls are reduced dramatically because customers are proactively advised of work in progress. Promises made to customers are kept, enhancing the dealership's credibility. There are no surprises when customers receive their vehicle, waiting or dropping off to their preferred location. Additional needed work is sold during a single visit. Great communication builds the relationship, makes the customer a friend, and opens the door to the selling process. Regardless if you are selling cars or parts and service, it's always a win-win when you're selling to a friend. Dawn, off to you.
Thank you, Jack. All right, so we wanted to take some time to share some advantages that a dealer of mine has found with using a service called iService. Basically, it's a lifetime MPI, but it also provides the dealership with a service-to-sales handoff and updates via the application and the customer's phone. So with that being said, rather than me speaking on it, let's hear what Jason has to say about iService and what it's done for his dealership.
Hey, Jason Clary here at TS Online. Just wanted to do a quick testimonial of iService. We've been with iService as a store for made it a little bit easier as far as no contact, touchless services during COVID. Another nice feature is it helps us communicate with the used car department. They'll actually do all the used car inspections and certified inspections through iService, send it to the used car manager, approves everything that he needs to approve, and that way they can get to work and get the cars on a lot faster. This is definitely a product or service that I do endorse and would recommend. It has done us a ton of good. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks.
And that's where we come in. At iService, we want to help you make the most of your service work and create a greater amount of profit margin for your hard work. How it works. A customer enters your dealership. When RO is opened at the DMS, iService sends a welcome text message immediately to the customer. Now the customer and service advisor can communicate instantly at any time from anywhere. The car then goes to the technician and up on the rack. The technician grabs an iService device and performs an MPI, which only takes about 45 seconds. The technician then takes a video and does a short 60-second explanation about the good and bad that he's seeing as he takes a look at the car. When the technician finishes, the video uploads in seconds and immediately goes to the customer and advisor. When the customer receives their inspection text message, they click the link to the iService web app where they can view their video, access their digital inspection, call or text the service advisor with one click, get their car appraised, dealership coupons, and so much more. When the customer clicks the play button, they are instantly able to view from the eyes of the technician what the car needs, providing more value, trust, and understanding. Meanwhile, since the advisor already received an alert that the MPI and video have been sent to the customer, the advisor has been noting the quote to send. When the customer receives their quote text message from the advisor, they click the link to seamlessly approve or decline the additional recommendations. The response instantly is returned to the advisor and the technician can get to work. With one click, the advisor can send a payment request to the customer. The customer receives a text message, clicks the link, sees the bill, clicks Pay Now, and enters their credit card number. All done.
All right, so with that little video and demo, you could see iService is a great tool that helps build value on the live MPI, the trust for the customer, as well as understanding what repairs are needed and why. So it's definitely something that I have seen great success with. And if any of your dealers are interested, by all means, feel free to reach out and we could set you up with a representative from iService. Next slide. So I'm not going to be reading the slides verbatim, but I will be covering all the context. So quality assurance, what are our dealers telling us? Proper write-ups are there to ensure that we avoid misunderstanding the customer's wants and needs. This includes avoiding the use of abbreviations. Did we review and discuss the customer's original concerns or requests? Are the techs utilizing their resources appropriately in the attempt to repair the vehicle properly? Did we document clearly the condition, the diagnosis, procedures, cause of failure, and recommended repairs? Was our consultant properly prepared the invoice with the appropriate costs and needed parts? Was a final inspection performed to ensure the concerns were addressed and that the vehicle was cleaner than when it was brought into the dealership? Did we use proper sanitation measures inside and outside the vehicle? And is our management analyzing and making adjustments to our write-up process when needed? Next slide. So suggested steps. We want to check and make sure that there are, let me rewind. We want to check and make sure that the area that the vehicle is serviced are clean with all parts and supplies in their proper location and in good working order. We want to confirm that all warranty parts are returned to parts department for warranty retention and confirm notation on the RO. For customer pay repairs, if a customer requests the parts, please clean them and place them in a plastic bag for the customer. We want to test all components or systems that are repaired. This may include test drives, operating the controls, or what means necessary to ensure that the functions work appropriately. In the event that it's a cosmetic defect, make sure that you visually inspect the work to ensure that the concern has been addressed. We want to review the tech notes to ensure that they are accurate and thorough. The notes should include the detailed cause and correction for each repair, and an accurate and detailed MPI, noting the condition of the vehicle should be part of the review. We want to pay special attention to the concerns that resolve in a no problem found, as discussing these findings could create concerns with the customer, as well as potential doubt that the dealer's skills are not enough to confirm and resolve the customer's concerns. All no problem found results should be reviewed with the service manager. We want to review the RO to ensure that all the customer's concerns have been addressed and the RO records are accurate to the entire transaction. We want to add any discrepancies to our inspection notes and sign the inspection card or report and attach it to the original copy of the repair order. Any failures that are noted on the inspection should be processed and reviewed by the service manager. Lastly, we want to park the vehicle in a reserved area to stage the vehicle for a proper redelivery and ensure that the recommended inspection results are recorded so management can review for potential correction in the process. Next slide. Quality assurance is not just intended to make customers happy, even though customer satisfaction is a major goal in everything that we do. However, there are also numerous other advantages to a quality assurance process. Some of these advantages include sanitizing, ease of customers' concerns related to the pandemic. We'll be increasing the fix it right the first time and minimizing any repeat repair attempts. We'll increase dealer retention on service and sales. It will have a clearer and well-written repair order as well as proper allocation of the resources. It will improve accuracy and completion of the invoice. It will provide a consistent method of returning the customer's vehicle to them clean and repaired. Quality assurance and an opportunity to improve operational tactics as needed. And lastly, it will build trust with our customers and a higher satisfaction, which will convert to a higher revenue for the dealership. That's
Awesome
it.
job, Dawn. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Jack. And Jerry and I want to just say thank you to both of you for contributing and presenting. Very well done. Thank you. We want to move into some suggested thoughts, Thurs, and best practices. And before we really jump into some of these, we do want to mention that we're going to have a raffle. And if you could be submitting your best practices to your district manager, that would be awesome. We also have a YouTube channel where we're starting to load a lot of those best practices. And you can go on there and see some of the recent stuff we've done, including the commercials there, some of the best practices that were collected from our brethren around the country, selecting what their dealers in their parts of the districts and the different markets and what they're doing. Something that jumped out with the best practice that we recently saw was a service consultant reviewing the appointments the day after they're made and examining the entire content of that customer request for the service. What it does is it puts a lot of the ownership back into the service department and trying to schedule and look at capacity and scheduling people and taking that into account. And the calling also reinforces the previous relationship or creates a new one if it's a new customer as well. Another best practice was always mentioning during the arrival process, mentioning the arrival process to the customer every single time so they know where to go and they know what to do if they are dropping their vehicle off. And as you saw, customers still demand social distancing be respected, including the wearing of masks. And really, if you're not offering masks, those customers are seeing it. Something that is new today that just popped, not only do we have the disposable face masks, but now we also have the nitrile gloves that are available, and that's available from your district manager too. If you want to reach out to your district manager, we have those both available as well, and there's a website you can go to. But the gloves were a new ad as of today. Talk about sharing best practices when they become available. Something that just came out too, and this is from this morning's webinar. We had a couple of dealers reach out to us and say, hey, I've got a couple other best practices. So you're getting the benefit of what they saw this morning, and now we're going to share what they're doing. Dealer FX, which is an approved SLT vendor of ours, they have a built-in electronic MPI texting and quoting system, very similar to what iService does as well, but it's integrated right into the DMS, and that is the DMS that they're using here. A very nice system. I've seen it in action from the Montgomery Auto Group, and a very well done system. I like how it actually, the customers were getting text messages all right there. The next one, and this is from Finnin Kia, Mike Finnin Kia out in Iowa. They have this transform disinfectant, and I know I have the disclaimer on there, which our legal department requires us to have, regardless, but we still want to share the best practice. They have this transform disinfectant program that they've been using, and they actually put it on the repair order for the customers to see. A very nice, well laid out process as well. But it's important for customers to see it. And it's very interesting. Obviously, when you see EPA registered and FDA approved, you know that it's a big thing. Another thing which we don't have available is a video very similar on the MPI from the Napleton Auto Group. They moved all of their stores into the electronic video MPI process as well. It's sent to the customers, and we've got a video that will be presented out in the YouTube channel as well for you to view. And then finally, available training. You know, Jerry talked about training on sales. We talked about SLT vendors. All the vendors that we have in our network, they all offer some type of training. Not only that, KU has a lot of training that's out there and available as well. So we ask that if you have questions regarding training, get with your district manager. We can get you connected with any of the vendors as well. Not a sales pitch again, like Dawn mentioned, but and before we jump into two more slides here, if you do have any questions, if you've written them down, please text Jack Sparling at 630-945-5895, or feel free to give him an email or send him an email at jacksparling@quusa.com. And even after the presentation's done, Jack got one this week from last week's presentation as well. And then lastly, thank you to some of our Kia partners that are out there, Total Oil, Sunbit for the extension on the 90 days. Dealer Tire, one of our other vendors, they have a great training course as well. Shift Digital did a really good presentation. If any of the dealers on the webinar saw it yesterday, it was well done as well. And then lastly, our next webinars, the 7th, we're going to have cashiering, which is a complete change to a traditional cashiering process, and a lot of you that have morphed into having the service consultants collect the payment, very similar, but you can see digitally we need to change how we do that. Redelivery, post-repair follow-up, and then finally on the 14th, the 5th one in our series, moving into service marketing, accessories, sales to service handoff, which is traditional. But the one new thing is the service to sales handoff. Since the sales departments aren't seeing the same influx of customers coming into their showroom, and they're calling and trying to get in to get a test drive or by appointment now in a lot of the states, that service to sales handoff helps generate that revenue in the sales division as well. And then finally, that's our YouTube channel, and it'll be available for you to click on and link, and the district managers will be sending copies of this presentation out later. And that's kind of where I end the presentation. Jack, do we have any questions out there?
We do not.
We do not. Well, listen, I know it's a different world out there, and our evolution is continuing. And that's why we have these webinars, is because we know we're constantly evolving and our business is changing dramatically. Our customers' expectations have, so we do. Anyway, if there are no other questions, we just want to say thank you on behalf of the Central Region for you attending today's webinar. And if you have any questions, get to your district manager, and they'll get them to us, and we'll get them back out to everybody. Anything else, Jack? Are we good?
No, we're all good.
Thank you, everyone. Please be safe out there, and thanks for attending.